Let me say it again. I believe health care is a right of all people. I will fight for a Medicare for all single-payer system. Second of all right? You want to talk about rationing? You got 29 million people in this country who have no health insurance. How's that for rationing? They can't go to the doctor.
Welcome to the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield. We offer you independent voices and underreported stories about topics you won't hear anywhere else. Join us as we delve into the deeper issues behind the news stories of the day on the MTC Report.
Don't go anywhere. The MTC Report with Mark Taylor-Canfield continues next.
My name is Mark Taylor-Canfield. I'm reporting from Seattle. I'm a journalist, an editor, and a musician. I'm a weekly guest journalist at the Jeff Santos Show at Free Speech TV and the Revolution Radio Network. I'm also a contributing editor to Democracy Watch News, covering pro-democracy movements around the world. You can check them out at Twitter and Facebook at Twitter/DWatchNews. Also, I write for the Capitol Hill Times. I'm a guest columnist there. And I'm also a freelancer. I write movie reviews for the Seattle Star. I also have a band called the Revel Saints. I'm also a member of the Galaxy Machine and do a lot of music around Seattle. So I'm here today to talk to you about the Bernie Sanders campaign and what happened within the last few days, which was that Bernie Sanders ended up endorsing Hillary Clinton for the Democratic Party's nomination.
My love is wasted for you, baby. And I don't wanna be your fool.
Seattle and Washington State in particular are very heavily favored in the Bernie Sanders camp. In the Washington State caucuses in March of 2016, Bernie Sanders won the state by 73%. So this is a Bernie Sanders state in Washington.
I talk about democratic socialism. I'm not looking at Venezuela. I'm not looking at Cuba. I'm looking at countries like Denmark and Sweden. And you know what goes on in those countries? All of the kids who have the ability and desire go to college. And you know how much it costs? It is free. They have child care systems which are outstanding. They have public educational systems which are extremely strong. The retirement benefits for their elderly, much better than they are in the United States. Bottom line is, when I talk about democratic socialism, what I mean is moving away from where we are right now. As a member of the Senate, let me break the bad news to
Since that win by Bernie Sanders in the caucus, by the way, he won every county in Washington State. Hillary Clinton was only able to reach 40% of the delegates in one county in Washington State. Skamania County voted 90% for Bernie Sanders. So this is a Bernie Sanders state. And if you go around Seattle anywhere and talk to people in bars and clubs, you will find out that they are supporters of Bernie Sanders, and you'll see his t-shirts everywhere. There was a series of music industry events here that local DJs, bands, and music promoters and club owners put together to support and raise money for Bernie Sanders.
Another election, another convention, another media intervention. Another reason, another season to vote for Bernie.
At one of those events, apparently $30,000 was raised in one night. So they were amazing events in Seattle. I attended them and really appreciated them as a musician as well as their political approach to pro-democracy. I've always said that the Bernie Sanders campaign is two things. Number one, it's much bigger than the Democratic Party. Number two, it's a pro-democracy movement.
Government which works to represent the needs of the middle class and working families rather than just the top 1%.
This was never about socialism or neoliberalism or the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. This was about an attempt to run an authentic campaign through individual contributions, bypassing Wall Street and all of the corporations that tend to control the elections in the United States and the media. This was a grassroots campaign that came that close to being very successful and possibly even winning the White House, which would have caused a political revolution. Now, Senator Sanders has talked a lot about this political revolution, and we've also heard from Jill Stein lately. Dr. Jill Stein is the Green Party candidate for president. But it looks like Bernie has decided to stay with the Democrats. He will not run as an independent, and he has endorsed Hillary Clinton for the nomination of the Democratic Party.
Don't go anywhere. The MTC Report with Mark Taylor-Canfield continues next.
Now, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters and delegates in my area of the country, in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington State, are very disappointed. And as I reported during one of my weekly reports earlier today on the Jeff Santos show, there were three main responses that I got when I talked to people in my area of the country. And specifically, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders delegates and people who have supported Bernie Sanders by volunteering for his campaign, contributing money to his campaign, using social networking and other ways, phone banking, just supporting Bernie Sanders because they really believe that he was a real candidate this time. Well, a lot of those people were telling me today three things. One, they're shocked. They didn't expect this. They expected Bernie Sanders, and they had a reasonable expectation to think that Bernie Sanders would not have endorsed Hillary Clinton until the nomination process was completed at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, which is coming up later this month. What happened was Bernie Sanders endorsed Hillary Clinton before the convention. So a lot of people who have bought plane tickets and are busing it or carpooling it out to Philadelphia from all over the country are very disappointed. So number one, shock. Okay, most people did not expect this. Number two, amazement that Bernie Sanders would endorse Hillary Clinton, who represents the corporate wing of the Democratic Party and this modern Clinton dynasty, which Bernie Sanders has always opposed.
I believe that climate change is one of the great challenges facing this planet. And what I have introduced legislation to do, by the way, is to say that we will not extract fossil fuels in their way of life.
A lot of people had the word sell out on their lips, although they were hesitant to speak it. It was more of a question. Now, to give Bernie Sanders some credit, there are machinations going on behind the scenes politically that we know nothing about. and I as a journalist know nothing about. So whether Bernie Sanders was able to negotiate with Hillary Clinton in order to get some of these issues on the platform that he believes so strongly in, that his followers believe so strongly in, like their opposition to the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, the TPP, their support of a $15 an hour national minimum wage, a ban on fracking. These are all issues that the Bernie Sanders supporters feel very strongly about, and is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons, but one of the main reasons why they supported Bernie Sanders.
My point is, Chuck, there's massive rationing in America. It is rationing based on money. If you don't have money and you don't have insurance and you don't have, you have a high deductible and you don't go to the doctor when you should, 1 out of 5 Americans today cannot afford the prescription drugs their doctors write. What do you define that as? Other countries around the world make sure that the people have the medicine they need. When 1 out of 5 people can't afford those prescriptions, man, I call that.
So if Bernie Sanders is not able to gain some very important and serious concessions from Hillary Clinton and her campaign and the Democratic National Committee with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, then a lot of his supporters are going to be so disappointed that they may leave the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not crying wolf here. I've talked to a lot of people, especially in the city of Seattle, of course, who say to me that they cannot vote for Hillary Clinton. They're willing to not vote at all, boycott the election, or vote for a third-party candidate. Now, a lot of them have been talking about writing in Bernie Sanders' name during the presidential election. So these are the things that people are talking to me about. Now, the interesting thing to me is not just the split in the Democratic Party between the Hillary Clinton and the Bernie Sanders camp, which is most obvious on the Daily Kos site. If you go there, where I write, by the way, I'm a blogger there, there are many heated arguments going on right now in the comments sections in some of my own articles. For instance, my article about the arrest of Bernie Sanders delegate Danae Evans at Jim McDermott's office in Seattle.
I have learned love from you, and I know you're rotten to the core. Every time I see you, I think I don't want you anymore.
That went viral and got so many hits, and people started commenting immediately. I think within the first hour there was like over 300 comments. But there's a huge battle going on at Daily Kos and across the country and inside the Democratic Party. There is a split. It is as serious in some ways as the split in the Republican Party. So this endorsement of this endorsement by Bernie Sanders of the Hillary Clinton campaign is perhaps an effort to create the impression, at least, that there's a unified party, as opposed to and in comparison to the Republican Party, which seems to be falling apart and nobody seems to know what the heck is going on there. So it's an effort by the Democrats to present a face to the country of an organized, unified party. Now, the obvious truth for people on the West Coast, especially in states like Hawaii or Alaska or Washington or Oregon, where Bernie Sanders is very popular, there is a split, and it's a very serious split.
A lot of spin, it's a lot of hype, and Hillary's nervous, she answers twice. It's really thrilling that they're so willing to vote for Bernie. Yeah, Bernie Sanders guy. picture a little love nest, the Democratic Party. One side it votes for Bernie, but the leaders, they want Hillary. He's doing phone banks, he's taking polls, and every day his campaign grows. And don't forget, folks, that's what you get, folks. We're voting for Bernie, that Bernie Sanders guy. It's one big mess, the party's splitting. And can't you guess, he feels neglected, and she's suspected of sleeping with Wall Street.
I have talked to doctors who have told me that people walk in the door extremely sick. And doctors say, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago when you first felt your symptoms? And people said, I had no health insurance, or I had a high
This
deductible.
is the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield.
We can have a world-class healthcare system without waiting lines, spending the same amount.
Von den blauen Bergen kommen wir, de la Bluae Montoi Venas Ni.
This is the MTC Report, the news behind the news with journalist Mark Taylor-Canfield.
I've been criticized saying that, let me say it again. I believe health is a right of all people. I will fight for a Medicare for all single-payer system. Second of all right? You want to talk about rationing? You got 29 million people in this country who have no health insurance. How's that for rationing? They can't go to the doctor.
Now here's a place you always meet a lot of friends.